I definitely want to mention my favorite series is actually somebody else go for it.
Oh, you're more excited. Go for it. Whoever has enthusiasm for it.
well, I mean, I
I mean,
I might have
anyone
already
can
said
go.
it already. I think I would have said, but D'Angelo, do you have one?
For like top 5 series.
Yeah, like if
Or
you were
just
to like
your-
pick a series and
Just one of your top series.
yeah.
All right, so I'm just going with Street Fighter here. I'm gonna go on the
Nice.
top 5 of all the series on this. So starting at number 1, I'm gonna have to say Street Fighter Alpha 3. Um,
Oh yeah,
it's
sorry, just to cut in for the audience. Yeah, so we're gonna say our like one of our favorite series or whatever, and we're gonna like we can rank them like the installments. So yeah, keep going, D.
Yeah, so number 1, Street Fighter Alpha 3. It's just got the best of both worlds at the time. It's kind of a little bit something old, a little bit something new. You have a cavalcade of the cast of Alpha, the cavalcade of the cast of Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, and a few extras in between. Um, Again, you have 3 different types of super moves, a system that was. So you have the. Let's just move on. Um, for number 2, it'll be Street Fighter 4 as a whole, including all the remake. Yeah, so I think it was one of the better ways of handling 3D graphics in the Street Fighter games.
That's
Okay.
true.
Okay.
That's true.
Play balance, because I have some thoughts about 5.
So do
I think they tried to make fighting games more appealing to a wider audience, and it came with punishing the user base for previous installments. So it's like they wanted to rewrite fighting games and make them more approachable. At the same time, they also punish play styles of some characters. Not saying 5 is a bad game. I'm just saying that it's very alienating to veterans. And some characters do feel a bit defanged because of some of their gameplay changes, or how they want certain types of motion commands to be registered while others stay the same. So, I'm spoiler alert. I can't put 5 on my list because I have so many mixed feelings about it. It's well presented, but I think whatever it did did a lot better. It, for any non-roster related purposes, I'll just put it that way.
Yeah.
Moving on, Street Fighter 3 and number 3, House Shooting. It's a Street Fighter game that's for expert players. I think that was the point where, I don't know who was in charge. I want to say Ono, but I'm pretty sure there are other people at Capcom who kind of decided that Street Fighter 3 wasn't the standard they should go on. Some of the best 2D animation for a Street Fighter game to date, and I actually wish that Capcom did employ that on some other franchises. That was never to be. The parry system, I get it. It is a little bit off-putting to some players, and some are better at pulling off the parry than others. I just kind of get it, but they did make a defense system that could be used by expert players to still avoid damage altogether, instead of just blocking, or it was an alternative to blocking. So, also the combo system's a bit more smoother on that, I find. Again, it can't recommend it enough, even if people just kind of slept on it. Just play Third Strike. It's the best version of Street Fighter 3 you could possibly play. You could skip everything else, though personally I like the first 2 installments because of the music. But that's just me.
That's very interesting. That is a very controversial opinion, because I know a lot of people fucking hate that game.
Well, I know why they hate it too, because it changes a lot of the cast. It's too much of a change. I get it. Some characters in Street Fighter do feel very iconic enough, whether it's someone's main or they just like seeing the character. And that's one point I can give to Street Fighter 5, is that it does kind of take a lot of the good stuff about previous installments and brings them in. I mean, how many games can you say have Hill and freaking Seth and Bison in the same fucking game? That is,
Yeah.
whew, that's epic. I'm sorry. I got to give that. Number 4, I'm going to say Super Street Fighter, not Turbo. Super Street Fighter 2 is my number 4 because it was the best version of Street Fighter 2 that possibly was.
Yeah,
I don't really look at Street Fighter 2 on a granular perspective where it's like, hey, I like hyper fighting, I like super hyper fighting.
So many different versions.
Yeah.
There's a whole
It's so crazy.
some of the patches changes. And for my number 5, I'm just going to cheat here. I'm just going to say X-Men versus Street Fighter. Technically, that's more of a Capcom versus game, but what I did like about that is that it did take Street Fighter games to a shonen anime level where you have Hadokens that take up half the screen and stuff. So you have your Street Fighter characters doing their moves at a higher power level, and even if it was, an olive branch of Capcom and Marvel just starting to get into the finer points of their crossover fighters, because I do believe Street Fighter versus X-Men was the first, followed by Marvel superheroes versus Street Fighter, and then topped off with Marvel. But yeah, it counts. I mean, the graphics and animation are just so colorful, much more fluid if you play the arcade and Saturn version. So it's like, yeah, I think that's a great way to end off the list. It's a fine number 5 because it's at the bottom. It's not bad. It's not. It's not necessarily innovative for Street Fighter, but it is innovative for Capcom for its time because it showed that you could intensify how fighting games play by having multi-screens for the height as well as the width. And this gave you a sense of strategy in terms of the one-on-one fighting system because you had a tag team and you get to ration your fighters and their health and everything, and got to make sure you keep them both alive if you really want to get that far in the match. So, yeah, there you go.
Good list.
Nice.
All right, who's next?
Nice.
Do you want to go next?
Me?
Yeah.
Okay. I would say, I guess I'm going to go with Uncharted. It's my favorite game series. I talked about it not on the last episode we just did, but on 3, when we were talking about favorite developers, and I cited Naughty Dog. But I love that series. I'm not going to talk too much about, I guess, why I love it, because I talked a lot about it on that episode. Like, I think the combat's great and it flows really well. The characters are amazing, and the dialogue in cutscenes, but even more so out of cutscenes and during gameplay is amazing. So I guess my rankings would be: I'm gonna rank the 6 games, including Golden Abyss that Bend did on the Vita. So I guess my top would be Uncharted 2. I think it has the best momentum of that series. You really just come out of the gate just running like at top speed, and it never slows down. You start with Drake doing the heist with Chloe and Flynn, and then him getting imprisoned, and then it cuts to 3 months later, and they go through Borneo and Nepal, and you meet back up with Elena, and just the whole thing is just incredible. And
It had such a great opening. It just makes you wonder, like, what the hell happened this whole time?
Right.
Because you just wake up right there in the bus, and it's like,
yeah, you wake up in the train, hanging off of a cliff. He's
right.
shot and bloody, and the train is overturned, falling off of the cliff, and he falls out, and that's how it starts. Like, it's pretty amazing.
It's freaking fantastic.
Yeah. I would say the next one would be 3. I think 3 has the best villain. I think it has the best story. It deals with Drake's fears and sort of the reason. It shows like how he and Sully met, as well as like sort of his obsession, and how it like ruins his marriage with Elena. And I really like how they go into that. it shows, and it's actually I'll mention 4 later, but it's the main. I love Uncharted 4, but I think I have a few problems with it, and I think the main problem I have is that it undercuts Uncharted 3's story by introducing Sam Drake, who is Nathan Drake's brother, because he wasn't a thing before 4.
Oh yeah.
Like it was with in 3 when they show Nathan Drake as a kid and how he met Sully. Nathan Drake is literally alone. Like he is alone. He was in an orphanage in South America that he ran away from. Like he is basically like considered a piece of trash to anybody who sees him, and like he's just totally thrown out by society, and he's alone. And when he meets Sully and they form their partnership and their mentorship, and Sully becomes like a dad to him, that's the first time that he's ever has anyone in his life. And that's what the whole story of Uncharted 3 is like, of why Drake fears being alone and why he needs to get Sully back after they capture him. Like, that's the entire crux of the story. And by introducing Sam Drake in Uncharted 4, they undercut the whole thing by saying, oh, wait, he had a brother the whole time who he was super close to, but for some reason they never showed him, and he was there, and he knew Sully too, so like they were actually together, so he was never really alone, and it fucking really bothered me because it's clear that they didn't really think of that when they were developing Uncharted 4's story. But yeah, so Uncharted 3 would be my number 2. I would say after that, I guess 4. Yeah, Uncharted 4. Even though I have problems with it, I thought it was great. I think that they have probably the best. Well, no, my favorite set piece in the series is the cruise ship from Uncharted 3. Just because it's like totally overturned, and it's literally an entire level that they built, that they flipped around, like, and it's a physics-based flipped as well, so it's that entire set piece is incredible. But yeah, Uncharted 4 has an amazing, like, 15-minute long set piece where they're driving, and then it goes to Drake, like, grappling over a lake, and then he gets dragged through the mud on trucks, and he's going from truck to car to motorcycle, and he gets hit, and he flips around. It's insane. It's ridiculous. And I also love I know a lot of people think that the game is too long, and I agree, but I don't think I agree. I think a lot of people think it's too long towards the end with Elena, and I don't think that section's actually too long. I love that section probably the most in the game because it's not only does it harken back to the original game with Drake and Elena just traversing an island and talking to each other, but in 4 they're like, it's again sort of building on what 3 did, but this time revolving around Drake lying to her about Sam existing and just getting back into that life even though he didn't want to, the life of like a mercenary treasure hunter. It's basically that whole final act of Uncharted 4 is basically just Drake and Elena working on their. It sounds lame when you say it, but it's literally like them working on their marriage as they're trying to like fucking get out of this fucking hellscape of a situation that they've landed in, and they go way more in depth into it than they did with Uncharted 3. And it's really cool because a lot of times you're like, I don't know if they're gonna make it. Like, I don't know if they're gonna make it in terms of their marriage. Like it's really cool. And also the epilogue of that game is it's like perfect. But I'd say after that it's Lost Legacy, which I do consider its own game, even though it's like a standalone DLC with Chloe and Nadine. Really cool.
I never got to play it.
It's amazing. Yeah, I love it. It's really good. They go into Chloe's character a lot, and you get to see like why she's hunting for this specific treasure. And they go into Nadine's character a bit. It's really cool because it's sort of the first Uncharted relationship where they don't like each other. Like they're not friends. They're literally doing it. They're doing it for the money. And Chloe hires Nadine because she's an ex-mercenary that we saw in Uncharted 4, and she's very capable, and that's why she's hired. And they become friends over the course of the game, but, things get dicey. Like it feels like that friendship is really earned by the time the game um, hits its credits because like yeah, they really get into it. But yeah, that I would say that one, and then the first Uncharted after that. I still love that game. It's still it was the first one, so definitely it has probably the most flaws that they built upon and fixed in the next games. But still love that one, and then I would say Golden Abyss is last. Great game. It was on the Vita, so they had some like sort of gimmicky back touchpad stuff, but I thought they had some really cool stuff too, like the photography stuff where you would like photograph like archaeological sites and sort of put that stuff together, and then they had like the charcoal rubbings and the cool thing where you would like there's a piece of paper with invisible ink and you would like hold the Vita up to the light and it would reveal the ink. It was like gimmicky, but it was cool, and the story. I think the biggest problem with that one is just that it didn't have Elena in it. Like it had Sully. He comes in about like halfway through the game, and he pretty much saves the game. But they had like a sort of a cardboard cutout version of Elena Fisher as like the main love interest because it's a prequel to the original Uncharted. And she was fine, but she's not Elena at all. She's not that sort of interesting, like sarcastic, funny, awesome girl that you know. And then the villain in that game is also fucking terrible. Well, there's two villains. There's Dante, who's has the most annoying voice of any character in any game. He's like this like fucking guy, this fat guy in a wife beater with like from Queens, who's just like this fucking.
What the fuck?
Is he the guy from Aqua Teen Hunger Force?
Ah, it's Carl.
He might as well be Carl. Except I like Carl more. So yeah,
Dude,
he sucks.
That's
Dante
great you mentioned that. We made fun
he
of Carl
sucks.
so much.
Yeah, but again, Carl is a fun, stupid character. Like I enjoy that character.
Right.
Dante is just annoying and poorly done. And then they have another villain who is named, I believe, General Guerrero, there's nothing to him. He's literally just a corrupt Central American general. That's it. Like there's nothing to him.
I know, like there's like Central American generals coming in any other flavor.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's all he is. And like, there's nothing more to his character. And so yeah, those are the
disappear one day.
So essentially, yeah, the biggest problem with that game is the supporting cast, which all the other Uncharted games nail really well. But yeah, those are my rankings for Uncharted.
Uncharted. Oh, by the way, I started thinking
Indiana Jones.
Indiana Jones, yeah, exactly. It makes perfect sense, actually.
Yeah.
I guess my favorite series is that honestly second to none. It's the Legend of Zelda. I know that if I see a Zelda game, I'm probably gonna get it. Yeah, I've been playing them for almost as long as I've been playing video games since the Super Nintendo. Starting with the Link to the Past. Honestly, I don't think I would ever play. I tried to play the original Legend of Zelda, and that's the one I will probably never try to play again. Because we've made giant strides in terms of video game accessibility and just video games in general.
What do you think of Zelda 2?
I also try to play it since it's available on the Switch, and I did again. The Nintendo games are just the Zelda games that I just cannot play at all. They're just either too difficult, to the point where just completely, unpassable, or they're just so cryptic
you have to use a guide.
Yeah.
And I get that too, because I didn't even beat the original Legend of Zelda until I was a grown man. So
yeah, I think a lot of people are in the same boat.
Yeah, I don't think I'll ever be a grown man enough to be able to beat that game, to be honest. I just don't have the patience to deal with the original Zelda's like obscure, really high difficulty. Especially for so little. I don't feel like there'll be much of a reward. I think that one of the things that really got me to play the original Link to the Past was just the fact that there's like a very clear story. Like
Right.
it's told to you like
Well,
very
that
clearly right
Overworld has a very distinct presentation, so it's
Yeah.
not like many of the areas bleed over with each other. You don't have to burn some random tree to go to a dungeon. You
there. Yeah,
actually
Right.
have a clue of what your puzzles are supposed to be to progress the game.
yeah,
Not saying that it's super clear and cut, but I'm saying it's easier to figure out than the original. So
Yeah.
Oh,
I
yeah.
can understand why that's the one that put the series on the map.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, like there's an actual, yeah, progression. Like there's actually some logic as to why I'm, why why you're gonna try to put a bomb in front of in front of a wall that has a crack versus I don't know, just hit this random square and maybe
Mm.
a door will magically appear or maybe not.
Yeah. hit every piece of wall that you can find to figure out.
It's
Yeah,
kind of one of those things where it's almost the taking advantage of the game design of affordance. Kind of like if it's a certain size, you could fit through it. You can figure these things out just by looking at it, type of stuff.
Right.
It's
right.
yeah, it's
It's definitely a
it's a game design thing.
yeah, exactly. It's one of those things that like at the time when the original Zelda was made, just the developers just hadn't figured out that to hide something, you have to put a little bit of logic in it. You know, you
Right.
don't have to, putting just like a random thing
You don't just
in a
put a
screen and
sign,
just
but you give a hint that
yeah,
something is
exactly. Instead of
breakable, like some
yeah,
sort of some detail in the textures or the colors that like you have an idea of how the puzzle logically works.
yeah,
Right.
Yeah, it's just an evolution of level design. That's actually just a quick aside from what I was talking about before with Uncharted. That Naughty Dog does that really well with level design, and like because there is a lot of traversal and stuff, especially in Uncharted. Um, me personally, I never feel stuck in those games to where I'm like, where do I go next? Because like it's either
Where's this?
the ledges are either color coded or the entire environment is designed around showing you it's like it's showing you where to go but like not being too like blatantly in your face to where it's like you're a baby, like let me hold your hand through the whole thing. It's a very nice balance of like level direction.
Hmm. Yeah, and then there's some logic to it of like it may be painted this color, but you get that in the environment and made sense in the world that it was like
Right.
faded that way and the coloration was like that at some point, but it's always consistent throughout the entire game that you always knew that like that's where I need to go. It wasn't some
Right.
sort of like big giant bleeping glowing whatever
Right.
thing button to press.
yeah, exactly. Developers at when they very first started, putting secrets in there, they would just like, all right, they just figured that you could hit every single possible element in the screen and hopefully you'd find the right element and
Right.
yeah, it was until later on that yeah, they figured out okay, we have to make some sort of progression, some sort of logic in which some sort of pattern in which the player can analyze it and actually find it, actually be hinted at there being a secret to begin with.
Mm.
um, I
Yeah.
think my favorite Zelda game um in I think my favorite Zelda game is probably going to be it's definitely going to be Majora's Mask. Um,
Mm.
it was
That's one of the few ones I've actually like played a good amount of.
interesting. You actually play Majora's Mask?
Yeah, I don't think I finished it, but I remember playing a lot of it on the
On
you
Nintendo
remember
60.
that like that you remember that like GameCube disc that they had like that had like a bunch of the Zelda games on it?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah,
remember that.
I had that and like I remember just like playing a bunch of them on that. I played that there.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, it's just such an obscure game. Like I know that it's one of the few Zelda games that's an actual sequel to a
Mm.
specific Zelda game. Like it's the sequel. It's actually a shoot off or a sequel of Ocarina of Time. And
Mm.
and while I respect Ocarina of Time for being just like a game that just started so many things that it just like set the trend uh, to so many of the modern inventions like our camera system and lock-on systems to action
Yeah.
games. Um, like Majora's Mask, I just had so much fun with it. Like it was this really like it had such an obscurity to it,
Right.
you know. Like it wasn't a really straight, rescue the princess. It was just this very self-contained, private story, very intimate story of Link um, reliving the same 3 days over and over, and trying to not just save the world from the from the eventually falling moon, but also just what I really liked about the game is just how the side stories were made in that game.
Mm.
Like I think it was one of the very first games in the which I actually felt like I actually cared about the side stories. I actually cared about about the little characters.
Right.
Um, and like the whole time loop mechanic, you realize at some point that you couldn't really complete all the side quests in every single time loop. Like in fact you had to in order to help somebody you had to let somebody down. Like you had to let,
Huh.
like, in order to get so like in order to help like a couple somewhere, you had to let this old woman get this old man or this old woman, I think, get assaulted and get robbed in the middle of the night.
Jesus.
Yeah, yeah, so that somebody else would have like the item that you needed at the at the midnight of the next day in order to go into a different cave. And it's like
I love
uh,
that kind of stuff in games.
yeah, yeah,
Like they had that in The Witcher 3, where it's like the world is very much full of consequences, and like even if you're going to help somebody, like it will either it'll fuck over someone else, and there'll be consequences for that, and like everybody involved, or like the people you're helping aren't who you think they are. Like there's always like some weird twist that makes it feel like so much more of a living, breathing world.
hmm yeah. It really exactly felt like that. Like it was a living, breathing world, and that every single one of these characters had their own, little private lives, and you were just, the little element that was either trying to help them or screw them over.
Hmm.
Um, Also, one very true thing about it is that also the fact that you can never really accomplish all the side missions in one single cycle, and that sometimes to be able to accomplish one mission, you actually have to screw somebody else over. Just it's kind of a good criticism on the idea that you can never really make everybody happy.
Right.
Mm.
So what's your least favorite Zelda game?
Other than the Nintendo games, um,
Like, yeah, like, I
right,
mean,
right.
any of them. Like, what do you have? Like a single favorite Zelda game where you're just like,
Let's
I don't want to even like look at
right,
this
right.
over again.
Let's see. My favorite Zelda game would probably definitely, I mean, would probably be Majora's Mask. My least favorite one, or at least my most disappointing one, was definitely the one for the 3DS that happens in the water, and it was called the Phantom Hourglass. Yes,
Uh,
yeah. The whole point of that game is that it was designed to be a design around the the drawing pad, the stylus
right.
of the game, and it was okay. It just passed the time.
Hmm.
It was the probably the most underwhelming Zelda that I ever played. Um,
Oh, okay.
yeah, yeah,
Uh,
pretty much.
okay, so let's see. For me, I think my favorite series. I mean, it would have been easily like I think it would be easy to say that Metal Gear would be probably one of my favorite series. I played like all of them almost, except for the originals.
Hmm.
But I feel like that might be the easiest thing because I've pretty much already talked about like why I like Kojima Productions and stuff. I think one that is that that maybe we can all agree that is a really good series. Maybe actually, one maybe the one that I think like as a whole that ended well. Let's not talk about the fourth one, but we'll talk about the three at least that I stuck with the whole thing and I was satisfied at the end, even though the ending wasn't as satisfying for a lot of other people. Kind of divisive is I love the Mass Effect series.
yeah, sure.
That's just like that's way up there for me, and I love the all the side characters, all the side quests, and the this whole playing with the Paragon and Renegade situation, and like I've played, and then the reason why I say that this is like really top for me, like one of my favorite series, is because I've played through that game, transferring that information from the first game all the way to the third,
Right.
in a way where I still kept on playing it again, where I started the game over and played it all over again, doing different choices, consciously knowing that I'm doing these choices. These are what's gonna happen with that one. So I'm gonna play another entire game playthrough with a different type of class. I'm gonna play totally different, and I'm gonna make different choices. And
yeah, for sure.
I played.
You've got to.
Yeah, it's like it was one of those games where I loved it. I loved to death about it. And it's unfortunate that the fourth one I did not actually finish it. Even though I was super excited for it, and but
we all were.
Yeah.
I did finish it, and it's not really worth finishing. I didn't hate it the way everyone else did, but it's definitely. I thought it was a solid game, but it's definitely, especially because I agree that Mass Effect's definitely one of my favorite series too, and it's just that series needs to be great. Like, it needs to be amazing. They just set the bar so high with the original trilogy that anything less than amazing is just not good enough, unfortunately.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah, I agree. It was just like so sad to kind of see such a series that I really I love so much, and then I just like, man, it's just actually not pulling me in. Like, it's actually
What was the thing that didn't that made you not want to play the game anymore?
They went back to the driving and exploration part that the first one tried to do, but like it was just like there was a reason why they stopped that.
Exactly. They took out that.
It dragged the fucking game on
from the original. Yeah, they took out those parts like the Mako and the open world stuff where the open worlds weren't interesting and they didn't have anything in them. And they literally just put them back in, both of those things back into Andromeda, but made it prettier. And I'm like, it still doesn't work though. Like, why are you doing it?
Yeah, they didn't learn from some lessons there, I think. It's either you don't put it in, or if you're gonna put it in, know why it didn't work. It just like and then work on those issues.
Worthwhile.
Right. Yeah. Like, there was a pacing issue in the beginning in the first game where the exploration was just like it's so dead. I mean, sure, they in the Andromeda they filled it up some. You got to do stuff.
It's still the same thing, though.
It's still the same issues.
Just like it's pretty much the same thing to every base you go to. Or
it got a very fluffy kind of like it was fluff. It was just fluff.
It's blow, 100%.
Yeah. And I think like one of the other series that like it might even just actually lead to a different developer altogether is that Infamous did such a good job with the fucking fluff. Again, I mean, quote unquote, the fluff. But like, what Infamous did for Second Son was really good in terms of like when I did those things on the side to build up my character, I was understanding a little bit more about like the world that I was in, and then that there was side quests or the DLCs even with other characters that you get to experience with that gave you an idea of like, oh, there's other people that are just like me, and this is how they're interacting with me with different ways, or they're this is how they're surviving in this kind of world we're living in. Then like that was better because it was that kind of open world was like it wasn't complete chaos like a GTA or Red Dead where it's piece of candy and you're like getting distracted from the main story so much so that you're not even playing the main story. Whereas Second Son in any Sucker Punch game, to be honest, like just like they're doing a thing where like you're doing a side story. It may not have like this big huge story part of it, but there's a lore with it. There's a little bit of you get a little bit more about the world that you're living in, and that's the kind of sprinkle you want. Mass Effect Andromeda and the first Mass Effect didn't do that. Like me digging for fucking minerals isn't exactly, what I expect from
Yeah, for sure.
from a science fiction aspect. And then in Andromeda, it's like, okay, it's beautiful what I see, but then like running into these fucking creatures and then collecting shit isn't exactly like fun when I'm not getting anything more about the story or the world or the creatures I'm meeting. That's where Mass Effect 2 and then 3 did super well, which is like we're just drilling down the world backdrop that you're in, and you're getting characters that you get to you get to experience the story with them. The combat, of course, is a big, huge difference. Like obviously from the first one and second, third, right? Like second, third.
Because 2 and 3 were actually fun. Like
Yeah.
the first one's not fun to play.
The first one, the first one was like the I like that series so much because they learned so much lessons from the first one and made just huge leaps by changing that in terms of what is fun, what is game design well done with gunfighting, in the fact that reloading is part of the fun. The impact of your shots felt right. It sounded right, so it felt good to shoot, and that was like a huge deal. And I feel like Mass Effect, for me, it was like I could say that like it was a series that learned from itself and continued, and even until the third, it wrapped up everything nice in a way where I enjoyed it and I understand what they were going for. Regardless if people didn't like how the ending went, like blah, blah, blah.
If they're gonna remake those games or remaster them whatsoever, that's probably something in which they could work on. Maybe just making new cinematics for the third game.
What do you mean, for the end?
Yeah, for the ending of the third game. Like I
They
feel
already did that though.
Yeah, but they kind of
they added it.
They
added that.
But they added some they added some slideshows. They didn't really, make
I don't think they should. I don't think they should change it, honestly. Like, cause you're not gonna please anyone. Like, it's not like it's still gonna be like, well, this isn't good enough. Do this. It's just like, I don't know. Like, I personally didn't have a problem with the ending. I get why people have a problem with it, but I feel like people's argument for why they didn't like the ending has unfortunately led a lot of people to that argument to bleed over to the entire game, where it's just like, well, I hate Mass Effect 3, and it's just like, but I was talking to you while you were playing it, and you liked the other 50 hours, and then you didn't like the ending, so now you just say you don't like the whole game, and it's just like, well, which one is it?
Right.
Yeah, most of the time, most people arguments is just the story. They didn't want that ending. They didn't want.
It would be like not liking any of the Star Wars movies just because you watched The Last Jedi. I mean, Rise of the Skywalker.
Basically, like in terms of the problem is that the people didn't like it was because they didn't lead to the ending they wanted, right? So, one of the arguments is that no matter what choice I make, it always leads to that entropy, like that one thing. But then like the ending, it did give you different choices. You're just not seeing the nuances of like, one was the ending where life is restarting, but now with the mechanical and the organic now blended, right?
Singularity, right?
Yeah, so there's that, and then there's like just all life resets. It's like the game ends. There's an ending. Does it just because it didn't like. What did you expect? And then like they wanted.
I almost wish they had just gone with one solid ending, honestly. Like, because I feel like that would have been even less divisive. Because by giving people, like, I don't have a problem with the ending, but like, by even giving people 3 choices, I think the main issue is like people wanted infinite choices.
Yeah, they wanted like such extreme. Right? Yeah, they wanted extreme choices.
Just like that's not really possible. Like in the way of game design, it's just not.
Yeah, it's impossible to make another sequel or another game after that to think that you're going to completely and utterly change it. Like freaking Infamous couldn't do it. Like they had.
I was just gonna say that
Yeah,
because you were
like-
talking about Infamous, and like that's exactly what happens with Infamous 2, right? You get very, very different endings. One where like Cole, he dies and he sacrifices himself, and then the other one where he goes bad and he takes over the world. And you
Yeah.
can't like make two different
Choose
games
one,
out of the
yeah.
next game. You just can't.
Yeah, it's impossible. Yeah,
Yeah, no, it's a testament to just how difficult that piece of writing was. The fact that Andromeda just sidestepped that whole thing. They're like, and it's in another galaxy, far, far away.
yeah, yeah. They did.
But
And that, I mean, see, like something like that for me wasn't the big deal. The big deal was the gameplay. Was like this world that I'm supposed to like invest my time in, like didn't stick
Draw you
with.
in.
Yeah, it didn't draw me in terms of like the things that I wanted to do on the side. It's kind of like
Yeah.
you have to it was one of those you have to grit your teeth and bear it type of thing. And
Right.
at that point I was like, I mean, I already did this in the first game.
I mean, yeah, it's a 60-hour game. It's not really worth it if you're not pulled in.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, Mass Effect again was I would say the top there were because at least even if the changes didn't make a huge difference and in terms of some story aspects, like it's still the experience of making those choices and seeing the result of it is and the change in dialogue and then change in like what the characters I'm playing with. I like that a lot. Like that was what really drew me in. And I think I haven't experienced a game that can do that where they have your one game save that you played from a previous and those choices roll over, right? And even if it was small changes, and then like, you kind of gotta accept that. Like they can't make too big of a change from those choices. So
I mean, inevitably, everything leads to some sort of conclusion. Like,
Right.
I mean, in Mass Effect 2, for example, you're always going to end up at the suicide mission. There's no
Right.
option to not go to the suicide mission.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
And it's actually
some people-
possible to kill off characters.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a
I mean,
cool
everybody
aspect.
can die in the suicide mission.
Right.
Literally everybody, even Shepard.
Right. And it was cool that some characters can die and you could continue the game with them being dead, a la
Right.
a lot like Fire Emblem, where
I made a wrong choice. The very first time going through the suicide mission, and ended up getting around the kill. For my, I was
Right,
like,
right.
no, shit. So there was no way for me to get her back for my next playthrough unless I played again, and I wasn't gonna do that. And just every single same choice. So I just pretty much hacked into my save file in my computer to just get her back.
you went through that much effort.
Yeah, pretty much.
See, that's the thing about that game that like for me when I was going through the experience of trying to play that game, I actually had several different game save files, like, and I was
so
very
did I.
very
Yeah.
intricate about it
I
too.
totally save scummed it in like Mass Effect 3 when like Tali, like you can either like the choices you make can like get her killed, and like I only save scummed it one time in that entire series, and it was with that because I got her killed like twice. So I'm like I can't accept this. I'll play through like that same hour like 3 times, but I can't let her die.
Yeah, I and it's one of the few games too that where I went through the trouble of playing through playing through it on the harder difficulty too to
Oh yeah, same.
enjoy.
I did
just
that with
like
2 and 3. Yeah.
yeah, and then
I mean, I had a whole freaking playthrough dedicated just to sleeping with Miranda. I get it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It was a good time with that. I definitely enjoyed.
It's so good. There hasn't been anything like that since.
Yeah, that would actually like a game where like the choices, the different like trees of choices that you could go through, you want to actually
The choices,
go back.
the camera. I mean, the characters, like the scope of it is like the space opera. Very like it's very like. I know this is gonna turn a lot of people off, but it's very Star Trek. Like it's very much the reason why I love Star Trek is because like I love Mass Effect for so many different reasons, but the main reason is because of the crew. Like, I love learning about the different characters and doing like the loyalty missions and all that, and it's so cool. Like, it's just something of that scale really hasn't. I don't feel like we've seen it. We didn't see it before that, and I still feel like it hasn't been really emulated well after.
I'm just sad my favorite characters died, the Reapers. I always felt like they were the good guys in the entire series. They just wanted, you know,
Yeah,
to
I
do
mean they're
something.
Thanos essentially.
Yeah, they were pretty much Thanos.
Yeah, I found it also interesting about like you got to befriend the Geth in the third one, so it's like now you're
Yeah.
seeing a once villain, but now like an ally in combat.
Right.
But yeah, they did super. They did super well with the fucking sides characters. Like all their like things to go on missions with them were really, really just
I mean,
super enjoyable. Super
yeah.
enjoyable.
Yeah.
Will there ever be like such a heartbreaking moment as the one with Morden in
Yeah.
Mm.
trying to end in the Genophage or
Right.
continuing it depending on what you choose. It's
Like
like
literally, he was the one that caused the genocide essentially,
yeah.
Right.
And then
and then he's trying to
who
undo it.
reverse it.
Yeah.
He gives his own life to reverse it. It's like
Yeah. I mean, yeah. It's. I mean, that's the thing about it. Like, I think like they did well with the story that kept on building upon itself with each like side character, and then you just get to experience like the next phase. And I think maybe like for some, I don't know if it's like if people liked that it was just at all ending. Like, is that their frustration? Like, where it really came from? But their argument is always like, it's just the ending I didn't want, and like they cite things like, oh, they didn't like do justice with the epilogue or something. And then when you add the epilogue, I don't even know if it actually solved anybody. Did anybody care about it? Like, I don't honestly remember watching it.
I mean, that's the thing.
I didn't need
that's
that.
what I was like, sort of. That's what I was talking about. Is like it just pissed more people off.
Yeah.
Like, because they just added to it, and it's just like, I don't know. Like, I get that they
What
were
else
trying
are they
to
gonna do?
appease the
Yeah.
fans, but it's just like it could have. I almost wish they'd have just left it alone, honestly, because that's
Yeah.
the thing. Like
The whole apology
even
to
if you-
fan thing is not exactly a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, they did that with. You remember when they did it with Resident Evil 5, where they were like, "Why are you
Oh.
killing black people in Africa?" And I'm
God.
like, "Cause you're in Africa and there's zombies. Like, they're not actually like
Right.
they're not just people. You're not just
Right.
mowing down people.
Yeah.
They're zombies that are trying to kill you, and you're in Africa.
Yeah,
and
that's the
instead
context,
They're
yeah.
like, oh well, let's change it. And now there's Hispanic people and Asian people and white people, and
Wait,
I'm
they
like,
did-
but
wait,
it's
really?
in
They did that?
Africa.
Wait,
Yeah.
when did they do that?
That was at
No,
the
they-
launch.
Yeah,
The
they
launch
did
of
that
the
right
game.
before the launch of the game. Yeah.
Because
They-
people were complaining about it before launch when
Right.
they were playing the
They were
demos,
just-
and then by the time it launched, you were being attacked by every ethnicity of zombie known to man.
Right.
I don't think I ever noticed any other ethnicity when I was playing number 5.
I
think
I
the
knew
only
of
reason
it,
I
but
noticed it because I was reading about
Yeah.
it beforehand.
yeah, I was reading about beforehand, and it was only there because of what I read. Otherwise, it didn't really
Right.
like
it didn't change the
it didn't
game.
change the
Like, it's
game.
not like it would have made
Right.
the game like.
He's
great
just
if
citing
they
an
had left
example
it
of when
there.
like
I just wish it's just like it's nice when developers stick to their guns regardless of what the fans want.
Yeah.
right, yeah, like they yeah, they don't just keel over. And I get it. It's a kind of it's a PR thing. So at some end you can't. Yeah, sure. All right, fine, do it. But yeah. What and finally, how would I rank it? I'd say Mass Effect 3 was, well, I'd say maybe no. Well, obviously Andromeda is the
Which one did you
lowest.
play the most?
I think the one I played the most, probably 2. No, wait, 3. 3.
For me, it was 3. Other than playing the multiplayer, it was 3 still.
Yeah, I actually
Yeah,
did
I
play the
think it was the
multiplayer
same
to
for
death.
me, too.
Actually,
Yeah, me too.
I played the multiplayer like pretty. Yeah, I played it. Yeah, I played that to death because I kept on. I just loved playing as pretty much what was it called? What's his name? Damn it, the assassin. Is it Thorell?
Thane?
Oh yeah,
Thane. There we go. Yeah,
yeah.
I picked that. I played I played the fucking multiplayer so much that I actually did hardest difficulty gun and melee build. That's it. I just or handgun. No, it was handgun and melee. I literally was going around in Vanguard class and would teleport to all the enemies, and I'm just John Wicking everybody. You know?
That was my favorite thing to play as a multiplayer. Just ricocheting
Yes.
between
Yes.
Yeah.
between enemy and
It's
enemy.
so fucking fun. And and then you just and you built it in a way where you could exploit the AI in a way where you didn't get overrun so easily. And even with the pistol and the melees, like you still was able to accomplish like high level like gameplay. I remember I was playing that so much that like I was playing with a colleague of mine, and like because I was playing so much of it, we were getting like the higher medals and getting so much of the currency or whatever the packs and shit. He's just like, what, are we pro? You know, like that's because he did not, because you go in public matches and it's just like you're not really like you're kind of stuck with who you were playing with, right?
Yeah.
But because me and him were just like communicating often, and I'm just like just fucking just I played too much of that game that we were just like 2v1, like just the two of us were just like, oh, hardest mode, whatever. the fucking AI can't even do anything to us, Whereas like, any other time people are just struggling just to get past like the first couple rounds on the harder difficulties. But yeah, that was a game. That was a game, That was really fun.
We were really hoping Andromeda would bring it back at least in the multiplayer.
Yeah, I was hoping it would. I was hoping it'd bring it back in the.
Sucked for that, honestly.
Yeah, it did. I tried.
It's so boring.
Yeah.
You couldn't do any of that stuff that you were talking about with 3. Like,
Yeah, the combat wasn't even allowing that shit at all.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Like the combat, like it was almost the same as
It's a little too floaty.
Yeah.
Andromeda.
Yeah.
The third one? Yeah.
I think that's
On the fourth one.
yeah, on the fourth one.
Andromeda.
Yeah, Andromeda.
Yeah.
It I thought I like that. I liked when Mass Effect 2 came out, and then 3. Like Mass Effect 2 really like set the bar, and the combat was so enjoyable. I could keep on coming back to it. That's what.
Yeah.
See, that's the thing. You can't just have the good story, right? Like it's not only that. It's the combat was just so
Right. I mean,
creative,
yeah.
and you couldn't like just like you're choosing different classes, but you could build it in different ways, and then the way they did the whole using your teammate as to do like combinations, like you could sync their combinations and do really tricky things, the singularities, the explosions and stuff like that, like
Oh yeah.
it's like
the pyro abilities and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
like the tech abilities
It's so fun.
yeah, it's just that was so well done that it allowed me to be okay and grit through rewatching things, like or redoing levels, like because I was okay with that.
You could always continue to experiment with the combat and do
Right.
like new combos and stuff.
Yeah, and then you just swapped characters and like, okay, I'm playing the run with only these characters, and I'm always gonna do this type of tactic, and and then you're playing with those characters, and they, you get to experience more about them too, and it adds to the side stories that you involve yourself with. It worked both in story, replay value, the gameplay, all because all that was working in synergy that I can play that game 50 bajillion different ways. 50 just like over and over. It's was I don't think I can think of another game that really kind of does that for me yet right now.
Really was a game of the last generation, only and the last generation only. Like, there's nothing that could have existed before it, and there's nothing that exists now after Mass Effect that it's like
Right.
Mass Effect.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's definitely a feat, right? I think it's amazing that you could have all this tech and technology, and like in the end, it doesn't matter much if you don't have
Yeah,
any of it.
doesn't even matter.
Like for how about what was it called, Anthem, right? That we didn't even touch that. I'm glad we never touched it.
Oh, I
Like
know.
that was sad.
That was
Yeah.
Like
from what I gather, a disappointment.
right, like now their whole plan is not even a plan. They're just like, it's just not happening. This is our 1-year plan. Yep.
Yeah, that was one of those ones, unfortunately, where I was like, up until the launch, I was like, man, I love BioWare. I think they might be able to pull it out, but every single demo I saw, it got more and more boring to watch. I'm like, it looks cool to fly, I guess, but like everything else looks so boring. Hopefully the game's better than this.
Yeah,
and,
hopefully they are actually
it
holding
wasn't.
out.
It wasn't better.
But
That
it
was-
wasn't. Nope.
Yeah, that's yeah.
It didn't actually live up to that potential, unfortunately. Them, and also holding out on the thing was like, oh, this is a really good story. Yeah, you know what? We're BioWare. We got the BioWare magic. I'm like, okay, guy.
Oh, well, that's the oops.
Hey, oops. Exactly. See, Destiny's doing it. Let's get on that train.
Too bad.
Yeah. But yeah, that's it for me, I suppose. If anybody else got any, is that it? That's it, right? I think
I
that's
think
it.
that's it. Yeah, I think we did a good job.
Okie
If we can say it
dokie.
for ourselves, but,
Anybody want to see what I ended up with?
oh, yeah,
Or
for sure.
Yeah, the screen share. Let's see.
yeah.
Anybody
But,
have anybody have any good movie recommendations right now? Anything weird, quirky?
Good question.
Like I have one. That's pretty much the only reason why I was bringing it up. I just watched this weird movie on Hulu called Palm Springs, and
Oh, I want to see that. Yeah.
it's good. It's
Yeah.
the less you know about it when you watch it, the better.
Yeah, I saw the trailer for it. I love Andy Samberg and Kristen Milioti, so yeah, it looks really funny.
Yeah, I'm like, who is that girl? And then I realized, oh, that's the chick from Black Mirrors from that one episode.
Yeah, and How I Met Your Mother.
I never watched that show, honestly.
That's a shame.
That's a good show. I never really got into the ending stuff, but who gives a fuck about endings? It was the experience of watching that show was enough for me, you know.
There you
Yeah, it's another divisive ending. I loved it, but my only problem was he never morphed into Bob Saget the way that like his VO for the whole series. Because
You're like, wait, but how do you become Bob?
Yeah, he was already in his mid-30s when he was like in the show, and like Bob Saget was narrating as like a 50-year-old version of
How
Ted
do you-
Mosby. And
how do you
he never
even-
became
I mean, it's
him.
like those
So
are one of those
so-
shows. How do you end it? How do you really end it? You know, it's so that's so hard.
really well. So the way they ended it was by planning it like 8 years before and taping the ending
Oh,
before and then
Oh.
putting it in, and it was
oh, they
fucking
did.
awesome. I
They
was
did.
like,
I didn't
yeah.
even know that.
Crazy.
Wow. Well, that's a genius move there.
That was
That's
the only
some
show that I've
five-head
ever seen to
move and
do
shit.
that. Yeah, that was the only show I've ever seen to do that. And it
You
was
say-
very
That's
impressive.
clever.
You're saying they didn't just wing it all along and they hired different directors that gave you contradictory opinions and kept giving each other the finger and ended up with a total mess at the fucking end.
And somebody in the end had to just kind of like wing it and fly with it, and just like oh well, somebody has to end this series. Well, guess I'm gonna just do it. It's gonna make everybody hate me, but why not? Either no, more like one half hate me, the other half love me, and then a subsection of people that just like I actually liked it, and then both sides just go fuck you. It's like kicking the. There's like a subreddit for that where it's like it's meant to this. It's like the secret club in subreddit where people like. Wow, oh man, all the subreddits that I go to is just shit talking about how they hate it. And the subreddit's all like, we're positive here.
Just for those people who are listening who are no clued into what we're talking about the Rise of the Skywalker.
Yes. If you want to go to a subreddit where they're not all toxic, it's called Star Wars Cantina. It's literally a subreddit that's like they somehow, I don't know how they all congregate there or how figured it out, but apparently they're just they just talk about every positive aspect of it, even if it's like the worst parts of the series. So you know what I mean?
Just to let the audience know, like we're gonna talk about all things pop culture on this podcast. Like we've been talking about games a lot, and we will continue that. But we'll also talk about movies and shows, and we have some things planned. So like we're gonna explore the entire pop culture landscape.
Boy, we would talk about like really deep shit, deep old. Fucking old! I mean, hell old. I was rewatching Cowboy Bebop old, okay? We're gonna talk about shit like that.
My
like
favorite anime.
Like, yes. we gotta talk about, like, really old anime and then, like, where that doesn't affect, like, the current stuff that is now and, like where we wish it would be. Oh, yeah, you know what? Yeah, of course.
Cowboy
and then
Bebop will be perfect eventually because they're coming out with the live action version.
Right, and then we're gonna talk about fucking Avatar as well. For those that are interested in that too, because they're coming out with that with Netflix.
Resurgence on Netflix, which created a new fan base.
Yeah, right. That Avatar got top #1 on Netflix shop watching list all of a sudden randomly. I think it was just COVID.
Yeah.
It really was just COVID. It's like we're gonna rewatch something.
It's such a good show anyway.
It was enjoyable indeed.
Yeah, same thing happened with Community too.
Yeah. Oh yes. Rewatch.
Like, have you seen this show? Yeah, I'm like I watched it like 6 years ago, and I was telling you to watch it. Like the same thing happened.
Right.
Same thing happened with Arrested Development too, when they brought that back on Netflix, and it wasn't nearly as good. But I was like, hey, have you seen this show? And I'm like, dude, I was telling you about this like 15 years ago.
Yeah. It's so funny. Like it's one of those hipster like glasses moments.
It's totally hipster.
Yeah, where we realize
like
fuck you
like,
guys.
Like I was here first. You need to listen to me.
Yeah. You should have fucking listened to me in the first place. This fucking shit was the bomb. And now you're watching it? Fuck you. Or the hindsight, or was it like those hindsight bullshit where it's like they're now fans after the fact? Like, you just come on, please stop it. Hipster glasses.
Congratulations, you're part of the club that I was trying to get you into.
And then now it becomes popular, and you're like, "Fuck you all."
Which one?
Which one?
Which one are we talking about?
Oh, we're talking about everything.
Many different things.
Like multiple different things.
Oh, okay. I thought it was a specific show that you just call the hindsight. I'm like, there's a show called.
Oh no! In hindsight, people are like popularizing it after the fact.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
For sure.
How about what's another one
there is the other side of that argument though, where it's like when you come into something so late, whether it's like a game generation or like a show or something that's been going on for years, and it's the best thing ever because you have so much content to go through, and everyone else has experienced it, but you haven't. Like that's basically everybody who I know, which is not that many people, who like Star Trek. They're like they've been recommended to me for years, and I was just like, I don't want to watch it. I'm not really into it. And I got into it like a few years ago and just watched. It took like 3 years to watch all of them, but I watched every series and every movie, and I'm like, dude, have you seen this? It's like the best thing. And she's like, I watched it in like 1986. What the fuck are you talking about?
Nice. Oh man. What was it? Matrix did that. When they first came out, like they did terrible in box office. But then as soon as like people were like giving it reviews and like people word of mouth, then it was like one of those few movies in theater that right before it was gonna be pulled off, like it just blew up, and then they extended it because it was just blowing up all of a sudden, and people just like became a cult classic, I guess you could say.
I didn't know it had kind of bumped at first.
Yeah, it was poorly advertised. It's just like as if Fox was doing the advertisement.
Like really bad timing because it came out right as the Columbine shooting happened.
Yeah, okay, that's a good point.
And then people saw people in trench coats in a movie with automatic machine guns gunning down people in public, and they were like, I don't want to fucking watch this.
Yeah, the association. Yeah.
Except for the random kids who were like, "Oh, I really want to watch it now."
Yeah, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then what was it? Firefly. Firefly. That's another one where people just like never didn't get into it because of how poorly advertised it was.
I mean they told Fox totally sabotaged it.
Yeah.
They put I think the last episode that aired was the pilot before it was canceled.
Right.
Like they just totally sabotaged it so no one could follow it.
Yeah.
Right, they polished them out of order, right?
Yep.
The first episode was the last one to air.
And that literally that whole Firefly was like only like gained the traction it did because of the fans and like them spreading it.
They got the movie.
Yeah, word of mouth like totally carried it. This is like an example of where fandom was important, fandom was like totally important to keep it alive and going. So
the Firefly movie Serenity is my single favorite movie of all time. So they did like thank God for the fans on that one for sure.
Right. What else? Too Human. That one.
Oh, great show.
Love that show. No one fucking knows about that show. I don't know.
No one knows. Absolutely no one fucking knows.
I fucking hate that. I'm never going to see that again and never understand what the ending is.
I remember talking to you guys about that show, and we were so excited. It was it was so good. Every week, we're like, did you fucking see it? Like, what? How is it so good? Like, it's just...
Another Carl Urban film or show.
Carl Urban, so fucking good.
Yeah.
Like, seriously, like the most underrated, amazing actor out there.
Yeah. Good thing he has the boys.
The boys. I know.
At least.
Season 2.
Oh, he gets a lot of work for sure. As he should.
I love that fucking show, The Boys.
Yeah, The Boys is great.
Yeah, not The Lost Boys. That's a total different.
If you're into
a
that
movie, but very different.
Yeah. If you're into the vampires and all that stuff, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I think that's a good way to end it off. Like we'll
That's our show. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, we'll
Squad.
We'll fill you in on all the later episodes and all that stuff. We'll talk about shows and tell you about shows that you've never heard of. Hopefully never heard of, I guess. I don't know. Actually, hopefully you have heard of.
On Too Human. We should rewatch that show and then fucking just talk about it.
Actually, you know what? That's another thing. So Blade Runner is one of I don't know about D, but we love that fucking series. Brenda needs to be on for that because she read the book out of anybody I've known. She's the only one that I know that read the book.
Oh, read it too, right?
Oh, you've read that? Okay, you've read the book. Okay, cool. So now we got 2 people. That's great. We should have that with combine that with a lot of science fiction too, and we can spread that out amongst podcasts. But cool, we got good content here. All right, guys,
Sweet.
bye bye.
Thank you for joining.
We're not just good. We're Goob.